Hi there. I am your host, Mike Hingson, or Michael Hingson if you prefer, and I'd like to welcome you to Unstoppable Mindset, where inclusion, diversity, and the unexpected meet. And I bet our guest today, Quentin McElveen, can talk all about the unexpected. He talks a lot about hospitality, Southern hospitality, and of course, the South is supposed to be known for Southern hospitality, so we want to get into that, needless to say, and learn about it. But that will come as we go forward. But for now, Quentin, I'd like to thank you for being here and welcome to Unstoppable Mindset.
Well, it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate this opportunity.
Well, this will be fun. I'm looking forward to it. Tell me a little bit about kind of the younger Quentin growing up and what life was like as a kid and all that sort of stuff. It's always great to start at the beginning.
So I grew up in South Carolina in a two-parent household. I was had a strong Christian background. I was one of the kids that couldn't listen to anything but gospel music. I got in trouble if I tried to listen to something else. Just grew up around a lot of family-oriented activities and outings, and a lot of my childhood we did a lot of traveling. And so I believe that's why I became so interested in the hotels. We stayed in hotels all along the East Coast, spent a lot of time in Florida, the beaches in South Carolina, like Myrtle Beach.
Mm-hmm.
Had a good childhood, very good childhood.
So you went to school and high school and so on. Did you go on to college?
Yes, I went to the University of South Carolina in Columbia and had a wonderful college tenure while I was there. Had a very good time there.
Majoring in?
Hospitality management.
Of course.
Hospitality management.
Of course. So with all the traveling that you've done, what's your favorite hotel?
When I was younger, my favorite hotel was Embassy Suites. I love to go there.
Yeah.
I love their how large the rooms were. Being a little kid, I like to jump across the bed from one to the other. And the breakfast buffet, I always loved that. I like to eat. So as an adult, I like the Hilton brand hotels.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I have that Hilton credit card.
I don't have a Hilton credit card, but I love when I can to stay at Hilton hotels. And I still love Embassy Suites. I've always been welcomed pretty well there. And it's been
Embassy Suites
good to stay.
Does fall on the Hilton. Yeah.
Well, it's all part of Hilton.
Mm-hmm.
And but so I enjoy it, and I still enjoy the breakfasts. They do a good job with that. And I've even spent time at the manager's reception, not being a big drinker, but the snacks are good, and occasionally a drink. But I love just the hospitality of the Embassy Suites. I agree with you. It's a great hotel and a great brand.
Right.
So you worked at the university, and you chartered an organization there, didn't you, if I recall?
Yeah, the organization that I restarted there is called the National Society of Minorities in Hospitality. And so that organization was something that we really needed on campus at the time. And it started a lot of engagement with different students on campus. And it allowed us to travel to Atlanta to the national conference twice while I was there. We traveled to Indianapolis to a national conference. Got us a lot of exposure with different professionals and students across the parts of the U.S. that had the same interests we had at the time.
Cool.
And I even went on further than that. I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I went on further than that and joined the national board of the entire organization. So I went from chapter president to the national programs director. There, I got a lot of exposure, did a lot of networking with industry professionals.
So are you still in the hospitality industry today?
Well, I'm not officially in the hotel industry, but right now I am a guest services coach and a trainer which sounds like hospitality, but it truly is hospitality, but it's not in the hotel industry.
Is it your own company?
It's not my own company. I work for a healthcare company.
Okay. Well, so, we will get to that. Yeah, that's a little bit of a switch, though, although you can certainly justify it under hospitality, I suppose. And that brings up the question, what is hospitality?
Hospitality is really a feeling that you give to someone else. It's really a feeling that someone feels warm and comfortable and they feel welcomed. Hospitality is a feeling. Something you can't fake. Either you have it or you don't.
Well, and if you don't have it, you should. I think it's a fair thing to say. Being hospitable and making people feel welcome is something that I enjoy, and I've had the opportunity to do it for lots of podcast episodes now, but I've always enjoyed it. And it seems to me that collectively in this country, we're losing some of the art of hospitality because we can't talk to people. We can't have discussions. We're so fractured. Do you find that to be the case?
Yeah, I agree. As great as social media and our technology we have today is, it really it took away the personal interaction that we once had before the advancement that we have with cell phones and the internet. Because we don't have to talk to one another in person anymore. We could do it on the screen.
I have heard people say many times that they've been on trips with their kids and their kids are in the back of the car and they're texting back and forth. And I've never understood why. And I asked somebody once and they said, because they want to talk about things and they don't want their parents to know. And I'm sitting there going, that is so scary.
It seems like it should be the other way around. It seemed like texting would have came first and then eventually would have came out later. Oh, you can actually talk to someone now. But it was backwards.
Yeah,
talking to texting.
Yeah, and you lose some of the art and some of the nuances of personal contact that it would be really important, it seems to me, to have.
That's right.
So how in your you went to college, you got a degree. Did you get a bachelor's? Did you go on to get a master's or just a bachelor's?
I got a bachelor's degree and I went straight to work after that.
Straight to work. How do you teach people hospitality? I'm assuming that when you hired people in a hotel environment, you want to try to get people who are going to be able to be welcoming and so on. But at the same time, isn't it something that sometimes you have to teach the art or help people improve in their hospitality efforts?
Well, any hiring role that I've had as a hotel manager in whatever capacity I was in at the time, I hired for personality. So they had to be already hospitable and coachable in the interview. And what they were taught was the skills to complete the job. Because you can teach someone skill, but it's very difficult to teach hospitality.
Yeah. It's a real challenge to do that because, as you said, it's a feeling, it's an attitude, it's a mindset, and it's something that people have to develop. I love going to airports, speaking of hospitality, and whenever I get to a TSA agent, when you get to the kiosk or to the counter or not, the desk and all that, the first thing they say is, can I have your boarding pass and your ID? And I give them my boarding pass and, well, can I have your ID? And of course, what I say is, what's wrong? Did you lose yours?
That's good.
and they mostly do laugh. Or I say, why do you need my ID? Don't I look like me? It is a thankless job. And even at hotels and so on, I love to try to get people to laugh. I think it's one of the things that I've learned to do over the years from probably doing radio in college and other things. But I think it's so important that we try to make people feel at ease. And of course, there are a lot of people who are uncomfortable around a blind person. And there are people who are uncomfortable about people of other races. And so anything we can do to deal with that is always worth doing, it seems to me.
That's good to hear. how you find a way to connect with someone by using humor. I do that quite often, almost every day on the job and with strangers that I meet. I think there's humor in everything, and it bridges the gap between, like you said, different races. And it's an easy way for me to input hospitality, but humor, by using humor, because oftentimes we go to businesses and restaurants, retail stores, or just places where you feel like a transaction. Like you walk in, they just want to give you what you want and get you out of there. You don't feel like they really care. You're another number. It's like a robotic transaction. And I don't like that. So anytime I interact with someone on my current job or anywhere, I want to make sure they feel valued.
How do you do that? Can you tell me a story of where you had to do that once or where you decided to do it once?
Sure, I do it quite easily. The easy target for me being in the South is football. I live in South Carolina, so the two top teams of discussion are University of South Carolina and Clemson. And so usually when you talk to someone, you ask them, okay, which team do you like? And if it's a Carolina person, I just sparked up friendship. If it's a Clemson person, it's a friendly rivalry that we can joke with back and forth. That's what I do very often in being here in the South.
Well, yeah, go ahead.
If they're not a college fan, if we can quickly move to the NFL, if they're not a sports fan, then I can talk about their, what they have on or their name. I find different clever ways to interact or connect with people.
Let's get real serious here, though. So that works great for South Carolina, but what do you do when you get somebody from UNC, North Carolina State, or Duke who comes to visit? Just checking.
We can shift the basketball. That's something I've done.
Yeah.
We can shift the basketball. And if you're a UNC fan and you may be casual, you don't really know what's going on, we could talk about the older days with Michael Jordan or move forward, Vince Carter. I mean, we could talk about those days. So
yeah, no, I understand. I remember going to a speaking event at it was somewhere right around Raleigh-Durham, and I landed, got to the hotel, and I was going to just order room service and eat in my room and watch a little bit of TV, which seems innocent enough. It was March, which gives you a clue. And I hadn't even thought about it. And I was going to actually watch a TV show that used to be on CBS called Without a Trace. And I turned the TV on, was just getting ready to order, and suddenly the announcer comes on and says, the television shows normally broadcast at this time, Without a Trace and whatever, are not going to be shown today because we're going to bring you the UNC North Carolina State basketball game that decides who goes to the championship. And you can watch Without a Trace at 1:02 p.m. on Sunday morning. Yeah, who's going to be up there watching that? But, they really did take it seriously. It was fun. And so I watched enough to learn to get into the discussions, but I've been in several situations where sports has ruled what you do. I've had a couple of speaking engagements where I was told you have to end by a certain time so that we can end this event by a certain time, like once in Kentucky, because it was the final two from March Madness and the Wildcats were one of the two teams. And they said, this all ends at 6:30 because by 6:31, this gym, it was in a gymnasium, totally full. This gym will be totally emptied by 6:31. And you know what? It was, I'd never seen people get out so fast.
Wow. Yeah.
But you know what we know what their priority. That's right. We know what their priorities are. It was kind of fun, but I agree. I think humor is an important thing, and it doesn't need to be humor that puts anyone down or anything.
Right.
There's so many ways to make people feel more welcome. And I wish we could really all learn more of that. And even with serious discussions, like nowadays, you can't really talk to anybody about politics. And you can't because everyone takes it so seriously. We become so fractured. But as I love to tell people, we don't do that on Unstoppable Mindset. We don't talk about politics. But if we were to, I would point out that I'm an equal opportunity abuser. So it doesn't really matter.
It doesn't matter to you, huh?
I'm an equal opportunity abuser. I'm with Mark Twain. Congress was that grand old benevolent asylum for the helpless. So,
okay.
Yeah. Okay. So everybody fits in the same mold. What do you want? But, politics is just something that is so serious, and we're so steeped in some of that stuff today that we just can't converse about it. And we talk about humor, but the whole art of conversation. And so I'm sure that you work to spend a lot of time just having conversations with people, which helps make them feel more welcome.
Right. And I always try to meet people where they are. You can kind of have a discernment for people and feel them out so you know what they're comfortable with talking about. And that's just it. So I have different conversations with different people depending on what they're going through at the time, of what they're already talking about. And so it's never a disrespectful conversation, never insulting. It's always uplifting and something that builds you up.
Have you ever had a situation, though, where you just could not break through and talk to someone, or they were just really obnoxious?
Yeah, I've had quite a few of those. That's when I know if they want it to be transactional, okay, I'll do that for you. I'm not going to ask you how your day was or anything like that. I'm just going to complete this transaction. I'm going to provide the service that you want me to provide, and I'm going to be out your way. I'm not going to hold you up at all.
Yeah.
There's few and far between, but they happen, though.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. And, you don't know what caused them to be that way. And maybe they're not always that way, but whatever. Mm-hmm. There's nothing that you can really do about that other than your best.
Right. That's right. In the hotel industry, there's a difference between hotel leisure and hotel business. So these guests come in with two different needs. The leisure guests use their own vacation, or they're there, they have all the time in the world to spend. So they're going to ask you a lot of questions, like what's the best place to eat? And what should I visit while I'm here? They're going to ask you engaging questions. But the business guests, they're there on business. They just want a room with a nice bed with enough outlets to plug in their laptop and their the cell phone, their tablet. They don't need to know what a pool is. So why am I spending my time telling them about the pool? They don't need that. They don't want to know the newest exciting thing in town. They're not here for that. So you got to know which conversation to have.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I must admit that even if I'm somewhere for leisure, I do want to know where those outlets are. So,
yeah.
To be able to plug things in, especially where the USB ports are these days, which is mm-hmm. getting to be more and more important, and probably rightly so.
Yeah, and I believe hotels so far, some of them have done a great job of adapting to the new that new target market. Because 20 years ago, we didn't need extra outlets and USB cords, but now it's almost mandatory.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And you got to have enough outlets to make it worthwhile, just because people are bringing things that require them and they want them. And it's all about convenience.
That's right. Have you noticed that like we talked about cell phones earlier. Now there are apps that you can connect with the desk before you even arrive.
There are, right.
Before you had to pick up the phone and call. Now they don't want you to call as much now, because sometimes you have to talk to a call center versus talking to the front desk.
Yeah.
Before that wasn't as big as it is now. So things are changing.
And there is a huge difference between talking to someone in a call center and talking to someone at a front desk. And I still prefer to call personally and speak to someone. And usually I can figure out how to get around calling the call center. Like if you want to talk about reservations, then they can say, if you want to speak to somebody about reservations, push 1. I pretty much am certain that's going to go to a call center. Right. And not interested in that. So secret, everybody. I just dial 0 and go from there. But Mostly I have my act together before I go, and enough information is sent to me via email, or I can look at like the Hilton Honors app and get a lot of information right off the bat. So I get a lot of the data that I need, which is important.
I want to add to that. I'm glad you mentioned about that app. I think it's important for those who don't travel often, or you're really not that into travel. You may not have an app. Whether you go to Hilton, Marriott, Hyatt, Wyndham, doesn't matter which brand you go to. I highly encourage you to download the app and do check in on the app. I would not wait to check in when you get there, but download the app. You can use it as your room key in some hotels. You don't have to have a physical key. And if you check in on the app, you don't have to stop by the front desk unless you absolutely just want to. You can walk right past the front desk. You don't have to check in there and go straight to your room. That's so convenient. And there are times when hotels sell out. If you check in on the app, you pretty much are guaranteeing your room, no matter what time you arrive, whether you get there at midnight or after. If you've already checked in, they're not going to, remove you from that room.
Right. My challenge with some of that, though, is in checking in and picking a room, especially if there are different styles rooms that all fall into the category that I can choose, not being able to see them and them giving you the information through pictures, that's a problem for me.
Okay.
So I have a challenge with that. But I don't mind checking in, but I also still go to the front desk. And the reason I do is it being different enough, very frankly, I want people to know who I am. So they'll understand later if I ask questions or call and have a question or just come down or whatever. So I don't mind speaking to the desk, but that's a personal thing. And it doesn't matter to me if it's business or personal or pleasure. It is still, to me, probably extremely helpful to speak to somebody at the desk.
Right. I agree. And it's good to get that personal interaction as well. Just connected with people.
Yeah. Where I see challenges for me a lot is going to a hotel, and they have, a lot of hotels have these breakfasts in the morning, the free breakfast or whatever, and you go into this room and you can make a waffle, or they've got pre-made omelets and all that stuff. Sometimes they're not necessarily very good, but they're there. The problem is getting help to find out what's where and actually getting assistance to get things, because unless I just go around with a fork and taste everything in each container, that's not going to work very well.
Wow. Normally, there are breakfast attendants that.
Well, they're attendants, but sometimes they're in the kitchen in the back washing dishes or whatever, or they step away. So it's just, they're not always there. And more often than not, it takes a while. But the other problem is, here's what usually happens when I find a breakfast attendant. I'll go in and I'll stand for a second, and usually I can find an attendant fairly quickly. So most of the time they don't wander off, but then they say, well, what do you want for breakfast? I don't know. I just got here. What do you have? They always want to know. And a lot of times that's why I hate it when people want to read me menus in restaurants and so on. If I go in and they don't have a Braille menu, I say to them, I'd like to know what's on the menu. And then the question is, what do you want? Well, the temptation when that happens is to say something like, I want a roast duck dinner with stuffing and other things like that I'm sure they're not going to have. Why are you asking me what I want when I want to know, first of all, what's on the menu? How am I going to figure that out? It's kind of an interesting world we live in.
Yeah, and that's a common question that I get too when I go to restaurants that I have not been to before. I mean, let me see the menu first, and I'll be able to answer that question.
Right, but
or tell me what you have first.
Yeah, because seeing the menu doesn't do good for me.
Right,
and it is a challenge to get people to recognize. Well, I got to know what there is first. There are some interesting apps, and they don't do as much as I would like. But there's an app, for example, called Menus for All. and it has almost 800,000 different restaurant menus. And what you can do is you can just activate it when you're where you want to be, and it will tell you, starting from the closest going out, what the menus are that they have. Unfortunately, I've been doing really well lately, and the menus that I've wanted are for the restaurants that I know I'm at. They don't have, and so I still don't get the menu. There are other ways to get it, and there are a number of ways. There's a program called Blind Square that I can access, and when I do that, then it'll see where I am. And Blind Square also is great at pulling up local menus. It actually goes into the website on its own and finds it and discovers the menu, and then it can read it out loud or whatever. But yeah, menus can be a challenge in restaurants.
Okay.
On the other hand, go to Embassy Suites. The chicken quesadillas are always good.
Yes.
So I can be in a rut pretty easily with chicken quesadillas.
If all else fails, go to Embassy Suites. It's a good place to eat and stay.
And stay. Yeah, it is. And price are good. But there are always challenges, and mostly I do find that people want to do the right thing. But of course, they want to do the right thing a lot more when you make it joyful for them to want to do the right thing. So I think that's really important to address too.
You're talking about just employees in general?
I'm talking about employees in general and interacting with the public. Employees are going to be more prone to interact with me if I make it pretty clear that I value them and want to talk with them, and then we can have a good conversation as opposed to just being a jerk.
That's right. I agree.
So what do you love about the hospitality industry, since you were in it for such a long time and you're still sort of in it, if you will?
It's come natural to me. It's something I've been doing my entire life, and just being a part of having a job where hospitality is something that you have to do. It's not hard at all. It comes natural. Even if I wasn't working, I would be doing something with hospitality. Even when I'm not working right now, like if I go to the mall or something, something as simple as holding the door for the next person, or something as simple down south. We say yes, ma'am, or yes, sir. I know that's not accepted everywhere, but it shows respect. Just making sure if there's an accident that happened with someone slips and falls, making sure they're okay versus pulling your phone out for YouTube and Facebook. Just the old school stuff that it's not as valued as much today. So working in the hospitality industry, or working in hospitality, it gives you the opportunity to do that, to get paid for doing something that you love doing.
And that's really the issue, isn't it? It's all about making it a fun job and paying for what you love doing, or getting paid for what you love doing.
It fits my personality. We have a front of the house. Well, there is a front of the house and a back of the house for a reason. Not everyone wants to be up front talking to guests, and that's fine. That's what the back of the house is for. And then the front of the house person, they don't necessarily want to be in the back. So it's a room for you. You don't have to be customer or guest facing to be in the hospitality industry.
But even so, there are going to be times when people in the back of the house are going to have to interact with customers. And so they should understand enough the value of doing it, even though it may not be what they do regularly.
That's true. That's right.
So it's kind of important. What's your most memorable moment? What's the thing that stands out to you the most about being in the hospitality industry, or that happened to you?
When I graduated in 2011, and I love this question, I moved to New Orleans, never been there before, don't have any family there. I moved there because I have a great opportunity, and it's a culture shock. Coming from South Carolina to New Orleans, they don't even speak the same type of English. So I had to learn English again. when I first touched down at the airport, the lady said, she asked me how I was doing, but she said, "How you doing, baby?" And I thought she liked me or something because she called me baby. But no, and then as I continue to go along, that's just how they greet one another there by saying baby. I said, "Oh, okay." So it's a whole lot different. So my most memorable moment in the hotel industry was opening or reopening the Hyatt Regency New Orleans. That hotel was destroyed by, beat up real bad by Hurricane Katrina.
Katrina, right.
Mm-hmm. And I was part of that team that reopened it. So when it comes to mattresses and pillows, sofas, I was part of that team, just restacking the rooms, getting them prepared, ready to open. I even had a hand in the terry placement in the bathrooms. So that was a big part of my idea. If it's still like that today, how it was when I was there, that's something I can have credit for. Many years later.
I've stayed at that hotel. I remember it. It's been a while, but I've been there. And I've attended a couple of conventions in New Orleans as well.
Around what year or years?
Oh, it was pre-Katrina.
Okay.
I'm trying to think if I've been there since. I may have been there once since, but I know I did pre-Katrina, and I think I was in New Orleans once and did stay there, and it was after Katrina, but it was several years after. Katrina hit, and then I was also Hurricane Rita in Texas, and I was in Texas when all of that happened. And so I got to see a lot of what was going on, like in Beaumont, Texas, and around there, and how people were having to deal with it. It was definitely a sad situation.
Yeah.
And people were homeless because of what happened. And sometimes I remember it was very difficult to break through to people and get people to smile. And I worked at it pretty hard. Of course, in one sense, it's easier for me having a guide dog because most everyone loves to pet a Labrador or Golden Retriever. And
right.
Especially when the dog comes up and pushes his or her nose right under your hand and says, "I'm here, time to talk to me." And people love that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Now,
I actually worked at a property. Oh, go ahead.
My current dog would say, "Let me jump in your lap," but that's another story. You were going to say.
I once worked at a property where we had a adopt a dog program.
Uh-huh.
And so there was a dog in the hotel lobby by the front desk 24/7 until someone came to adopt that pet. And then when that pet got adopted, they brought a new dog in. And that was interesting. And people love to come in and like you said, pet the dog that we had in at the time.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, you had to have a dog that would tolerate being loved by lots of people, but that's fine.
Yes. Now, we didn't have many problems. Except one dog that we had to send back because it didn't like being pet.
Ah. So. Only dogs, though, no cats, huh?
No cats.
Yeah, there are differences there. Cats would be a different situation all the way around anyway. But still, that's neat that they did that. Where was that? What hotel was that? Where was that?
This is actually in Greenville. Greenville, South Carolina. Mm-hmm.
Do they still have that program, do you think?
I'm not sure. I would imagine that they do, but I'm not 100% sure.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Now, I have been to the Peabody Hotel in Tennessee where, they have the ducks that go over the bridge every day. And we watched the ducks. My dog was very interested in those ducks. The thing is with her, she liked ducks. We actually had ducks that came up on our patio in Northern California, in Novato, California. We lived on a lagoon, and the ducks would come up because we fed them bread. And if my dog just laid down, they would surround her and they'd quack at her and so on. And as long as she didn't make any sudden moves, they were fine. Of course, what she loved to do was sucker them all to getting close by, and then she would jump up and they would all fly away. She loved to watch them fly away. Didn't I do good? But she was absolutely very, very sociable and loved them. That was her version of hospitality, right? But she really did. She loved the ducks, and actually they all got along really well. So it was kind of cool.
Nice.
Yeah, it is. Well, so what has the hospitality industry taught you? What have you learned from being in it for such a long time?
So working in that industry, you meet people from all walks of life. It teaches you diversity. So coming from a small city in South Carolina where you're around the same atmosphere all the time, and that's all you see. But once you move out, like for example, when I moved to New Orleans or moved back to South Carolina and worked in a few different cities in South Carolina, you meet people that fly in from all over the world, really. Mm-hmm. And so it expands or broadens your horizons. You get to interact with a lot of different ethnicities. So it definitely teaches you diversity. Teaches you patience, because not everyone hasn't enjoyed their having a time. Let me say it another way. Some people run into some issues, like maybe some accident happened, the room wasn't clean, or whatever the case was. It teaches you patience because you want to sit there and listen to them completely and then solve their problem. You don't want to just cut them off and then just solve the problem. You want to listen to them first, because that's one way that they're going to feel valued. They think that it matters if you listen to them first. So it teaches you that patience, and it teaches you really be a better person. It really does.
How so?
Because if you didn't have the opportunity to know that just because you think something is a good idea, your coworker is from another country or from another city, another background, they have a completely different idea, and their idea isn't wrong. Yours isn't wrong either. It's just different. You got to figure out a way to come together for the greater good of the assignment that you're on, or the greater good of the property, and work it out. And it's good to see something from another lens. You only can speak on your life experiences. If you never experienced something different, how can you give a valid input on it? Your coworker has, and vice versa. And so that's another way of just broadening your horizons. And having those problem-solving skills is transferable to any industry, just transferable to your personal life. Being able to problem solve, because it's not going to be perfect every day. There's no 2 days alike. Something's always going to need attention done to it. And if you've done that so many times, just being just a human being, you're going to have to put those things into practice at some point outside of your job.
Yeah.
And one thing that I'm not sure if people know it or not, but at one point they didn't. Working in the hotel industry has a lot of transferable skills. Like, as we stated before, I currently work in the healthcare industry, but a lot of the stuff that I use, I learned from working in the hotel industry. Talking to a guest with their patients, but I call them guests, that maybe frustrated with, well, let me tell you the story. This happened last week. Last week, I got a call that we had a guest that was actually a blind guest, and he struggled with getting around in our facility. He was able to get dropped off there by the transportation company, and he was able to get picked up. But while he was there, he didn't receive the help that he needed. So he told the person, his caregiver, and he told me, because I work in the guest experience department, and we made it work. So the next time you come, give us a call. We'll ensure that you get around to your destination while you're in the building. And when you leave, make sure you get back to the front door. And I got feedback on this week that he saw the difference, that he really enjoyed us taking the time to make sure that he was taken care of. So that's coming from the hotel industry. And that was something I love to do. I love to take care of someone.
So you think you probably wouldn't have necessarily learned that if it hadn't been for being in the hotel and hospitality industry for so long?
I wouldn't have been exposed to it the way that I have been. So I would have reacted maybe not the same, but just my upbringing, I love to help people anyway. But going about it in such a way to get it done as quick as and seamless as possible, the hotel industry has taught me how to do that.
Mm-hmm. How would you describe your leadership style? Because clearly you've progressed in the hospitality industry and you must have been in managerial and leadership positions. And obviously in college, you did some things that would mark you as a leader. So what's your style?
Yeah. So yes, I have had some several manager positions in front of the house and back of the house with rooms and food and beverage. And my leadership style is charismatic and hands-on, down in the trenches with them. We're going to get our work done, but we're going to have fun doing it as well. Like we're going to laugh, joke. You're going to see some humor. I want you to feel comfortable. I want you to feel like you matter. It's not a dictatorship. It's not a strong arm rulership. Your opinion is needed and is necessary. And as a leader, I'm on the front line. I'm not going to ask you to do something that I would not do.
Mm-hmm.
So charismatic would be the answer to that.
Have you had, go ahead.
And let me give you a housekeeping story. Many times in the hotel industry, you have to, you're going to have to pitch in and help housekeeping, which is understood, very common. So it doesn't matter that you got a brand new suit on that you bought. Roll your sleeves up and get in there and make them beds and help clean. That's what managers do. You don't just tell somebody else to do it. And so there were times when I'm helping housekeepers clean a room. She said, no, Quentin, we got it. You go back up to the front. We'll take care of it for you. And so that respect level they have, they know that I'm willing to help. But in that particular case, they wanted me to, they didn't want me to do it that. They want me to help in another ways.
Mm-hmm. But you sent a message by what you did that you're willing to help and assist them because they also have a lot they're dealing with. So you kind of have their back. Right.
And at the time that we're filming this, it's actually International Housekeeping Week. I'm not in the industry anymore, but this week is special. It's a time where you use your resources and use your time to celebrate housekeepers. And I absolutely love this week. And just scrolling through my feed, there's a lot of different things that are being done this week. There's one hotel, they're getting all of their housekeepers a pedicure, like a spa day. It's a lot of celebrations, a lot of food, a lot of acknowledgments. And just think of the hotel industry without housekeeping. No hotel would last because they are the heart of the hotel.
You, in dealing with a lot of different people and all that, have you had any employee situations that you've inherited, for example, where, again, somebody just didn't respond and you had to take some action because they were not being hospitable?
Yes. There's two I can think of right now. One case, it was just that, like, you come in and you're working with the public. Like you say, you want to be hospitable. And if you just want to come in and just be transactional, I don't want to tell about the exact things that happened, but if you just somehow slip through the cracks through the interview, like you played it safe in the interview and you acted well, but you get the job and you're a totally different person, that's not going to last well. That's not going to last long, I should say.
Yeah. And because you can't hide it forever.
Right. After about 3 months, it's you've used your time.
Yeah. And it is something that people are going to pick up on. Again, it's so much easier to have fun and enjoy life and encourage others to do the same thing anyway.
Well, one thing that I really enjoy about another thing about working in the hotel industry is I got older. My focus really wasn't so much me. Of course, I know I'm going to do a good job, but I want to see how can I develop a team? How can I lead others to be successful? How can I build up others to match their dreams and goals? Because not everyone wants to be a manager in the hotel industry. And not everyone wants your job. Some people are there working through school. Some people have a spouse that's working and they just want a second job. Find out what motivates everyone, and that'll help you be a better manager to them. And if you align with your people's needs, they're definitely going to align with yours as well. And for example, let's say you're short staffed one day. If you're not a good manager, if you don't treat your team with respect, you can make the phone calls to call people in, but your phone, you might not get an answer. But then they see, okay, this manager respects me. Let me answer the phone, see if they want. And yeah, I come in if you need me to come in. That makes a big difference in how you treat people. And being a leader, not just a manager or a boss, you get a chance to really change people's lives for the better. And that brings you more joy than just about anything. Because I always treat my employees as they were guests. If I treat them like guests, then there's no doubt in my mind, they're going to treat the guests well because they see their manager do it.
You just said something really interesting. You talked about a leader or a manager or just a boss. What's the difference between a boss and, say, a manager or a leader?
Well, I would put boss and manager in the same category. So a manager, they have a certain task they need to complete or a goal that they need to reach. They're going to just reach that goal and they're going to tell you to go do it. Their part that they're playing is delegation. That's the main part of what they do. A leader, yes, they're going to delegate as well, but they're going to do it with you. They're going to make sure that you have all the tools that you need to complete the task, the delegation. They're going to do some of it with you on the front lines. And so while they're on the front lines, now we get to know each other. We've moved on from small talk. Now, I might know something about your family now. I know about your interests. What's your favorite ice cream? So when your birthday gets here, I can give you that. A manager, they don't really care about all those details that much. Just come in, do your job, and keep it moving. So there's a big difference between a manager and a leader. And I always want to be the leader that I want my that I would want to have.
Yeah. I think it's important to be a leader, and the really good managers learn to assess who has what leadership qualities and know when to give up leadership to somebody else on the team to deal with something that they need to deal with.
Yes, I 100% agree with that. Yeah.
We experienced a lot of that in the World Trade Center going down and escaping on September 11th. There were different people that had different skills that worked at different times. Mm-hmm. And even working with my guide dog, there were times that the dog was able to guide because we could walk side by side. And there were times that the dog couldn't be next to me and had to walk behind me just at heel on a leash. But, mm-hmm. The bottom line is that for the team of me and a guide dog, we both respected each other. And I think that's the biggest issue with teams and team building overall, is to develop a true respect among all the team members, and that the leader of the team knows and learns to understand the the qualities and abilities of everybody on the team to know exactly that, when to allow someone else to take the lead to accomplish something.
Yes, there were several times in department meetings there was something that we had to accomplish or go over. There are times I would open up the floor and tell the team, okay, this is what we need to accomplish. Does anybody have any ideas? I mean, it might be an answer that I have, but rather than just giving out the answers, empower somebody else to join in and give them a chance to lead. And you start to see where you have a lot of strength on your team. If you just allow them to contribute, that'll make them better employees and make them better leaders. I've seen housekeepers turn into housekeeping managers. I've had a front desk agent turn into a general manager. I mean, through that progression under my leadership.
Yeah.
And so empowering employee empowerment is huge for me. It's a big part of my what I do as a leader.
Well, and let's go back to your discussion. You're having a discussion with people, and you say, "What are your ideas? Please contribute." And somebody said something, and you assess, and then maybe make the decision to say, "Okay, would you be willing to coordinate starting and working this project?" Which is, of course, part of what you're saying. It's very important to be able to do that. And I think that that's extremely important. And it shows that people value the people that they work with. And I also believe that good leaders are also servants, and we need to understand that.
Oh, yeah. And that goes into employee engagement as well. Once you get your employee engaged, then you don't necessarily have to worry as much about what they're doing whenever you're not around. Because if they have an assignment, like you just mentioned, and a deadline, they're going to be working on getting that assignment done. And if somebody is engaged, they're more likely to stay, because you want to be somewhere where you feel like you have some type of value. I don't think anyone just wants to come in to a place where they know no one wants them to be there. So that employee engagement is another thing as well. That's a big part of my leadership style.
I work, when I'm dealing with my teams, whenever it is, to get people to understand that I don't want you to just feel that this is a job. I want you to have fun. I want you to come because you want to. And I think that I have to have fun, and I have to set that example. But I want people not to think that a job is just a job, but it is what we're doing, and we're working together, and we're making a difference. And part of my job is to show people when they make a difference and how they make a difference and why that's so important.
Right. In today's world, as the generations change from baby boomers to Generation X, Generation Y, Generation Z, the tenures of the length of time someone stays at a company, it changes. You used to see those that stay at a job for 20 plus years. You don't see that as often now. Usually the generation now, or millennials, or generation after us, because I'm a millennial, might stay on a job for 3 years or so. Maybe less than that, maybe more than that, but I would say 3 years is probably a good average. And some of the reasons why they would take a position at another job is because they don't feel as valued. Another job might offer them something that they can't get at their current position. That's one of the reasons. And as I think that we need to kind of, as leaders of businesses and companies, let's kind of evaluate, how can we get our employees to stay longer? What can we do? Will it help our bottom line if we figure out a way to keep them longer? Or I think that's a discussion that needs to be had.
Do you think companies are doing that at all and are catching on to the fact that that probably is a sensible thing? Or do you think that people just still are viewing workers as commodities without really looking at the person? Because my impression is that there's a lot of that goes on today.
I think it's a topic of discussion. I honestly don't know what's being done. The gig economy has played a big part in that, because so the generation now, they can just go quit and okay, I'll drive Uber for a few months until I can find something else, or I might just do Uber permanently. This was not an option 20, 30 years ago. You couldn't take a job like that. Or somebody might say, I'm going to be a content creator, and so I'm going to make my money online. So there are more options now than ever before. And because of those options, it should be some action taken within corporate America.
Something that we got to learn.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you talked about the lessons that you learned in the hospitality industry that you take to life. How about the other way? What have you learned outside of the hospitality industry that you brought into your work in the hotel industry?
There's something that's huge right now. It's called emotional intelligence. I've never heard of that before. Maybe I'm late to it, or maybe I think I'm just right on time. But I've never heard of emotional intelligence before. And in the industry that I'm in now, I actually teach it as a coach. It's understanding how your emotions affects others around you, and how it affects your actions as well. And the fact I've been studying this and teaching it to others, like, I've improved my performance as far as having conversations with others, because I understand now how my actions, even though I might not be trying to do something negative, or I might not be trying to act a certain way, it might come off as a certain way. Emotional intelligence has taught me that. So that's something I've implemented, and I'm going to use this forever. So
pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
So in the world, we all tend to be inspired by people. Who's the person who's most inspired you?
The person that the person that inspires me right now is my wife. But gives me the motivation that I need to go in and move our family forward, every day. So my wife is my biggest motivation right now.
I had a conversation actually with someone earlier today, and we were talking about that very thing. And he asked who inspired me, and I mentioned my geometry teacher from high school, Dick Herbolsheimer, but certainly another person, and the person who, if I also were to really talk about inspiration, would be my wife, Karen, who was married to me for 40 years until she passed. But 40 years, a lot of memories. But in so many ways, and I even, in the book I wrote about the World Trade Center and my life, Thunderdog, the story of a blind man, his guide dog, and the triumph of trust, we talk about that and talk about some of the things that she did that I think only she would think of, that I certainly didn't until she brought it up, that just really helped me make some very wise choices. I always thought she was brighter than I anyway. So you switched from directly being in the hospitality industry to the healthcare industry. What caused that, and what do you do now? I think you've told us some of that, but that's a pretty big change going from one to the other, in a sense, it would seem.
Yeah. Really what caused it is in 2020, during the height of the pandemic, the situation that I was in the hotel at the time, it became a hazardous situation because the room rates went down a lot, the staffing went down, and the environment wasn't a good environment at the time. So just so I could be safer and be closer to my family, I accepted a position outside of the hotel industry. Hard decision to make, because it's an industry that I love, that I'm passionate about. But then I found something called a guest experience coach. So wait a minute, is this a hotel job or something? What's a guest experience coach doing in a healthcare a job? So I looked it up, and it was teaching people and instilling in them what I've learned so many years as a manager in the hotel industry, but teaching it to healthcare workers. And so as a guest experience coach, what I do is I travel around different campuses of my company, and I train on different subjects like the emotional intelligence. I train on telephone etiquette and how to handle difficult guests, and many other topics as well. But that's what I do now, very similar to what I've done in the past.
Do you think that you would go back into the hotel industry directly in the future, or are you really happy where you are now?
Yes, I would love the opportunity to re-enter in a role similar to what I'm doing now, where you can use your experience and coach and build others up, like a learning and development manager, or even in a role that's supporting operations. Like I told you, my biggest memory, or not memory. You asked me what was my biggest something I did, and I told you it was New Orleans. My most memorable moment.
Memorable moment, yeah.
Yes. Opening a property, that was a great experience. There are positions that you do just that. You go around and you open properties. So, I would love to re-enter the industry if we're given an opportunity.
Well, hopefully that will happen.
Yeah, I believe it will.
Well, I want to thank you for being with us. We've had a lot of fun over this last hour, and I think you've said a lot of very interesting and important things that we can all take to heart. I love your view of leadership and a lot of the things that you've said. And I've spent enough time around the hospitality industry, I think, to understand it. And like I said, I enjoy dealing with people too, and helping to have people feel welcome. And I know that for me, being different because of being blind, it's very helpful to do that. So I love getting the validation of your philosophy, and I appreciate that.
Well, Mr. Michael, thank you again. It's a great opportunity to be here with you, and I'm honored that you allow me to be on your platform. So I appreciate what you do here, and I thank you for having me.
Do you do any coaching privately, or do you just do it for the healthcare industry? You don't have your own sort of side hustle business?
Currently, I don't have that, but that's something I've been looking into.
Thinking about, huh? Well,
yeah.
If you do, let us know, because we'll let people know. But if people want to reach out to you, is there a way they can do that, or do you have any contact information that you want to tell people?
Sure. You can find me on LinkedIn. You can just type in Quentin McElveen.
Can you spell that?
Active on there. Sure. QUENTIN. So it's Quentin. And McElveen is MCELV as in Victor, EEN. So Quentin McElveen.
Perfect.
And I'm easy to find on there, and I'm on there pretty often. So that's the best place to interact with me.
And that's how we found you.
Yes, that's right.
I'm very glad that we did. Well, thanks for being here. Thanks for listening. We really appreciate it. I hope that you enjoyed what Quentin had to say today and that some of it resonates. Reach out to Quentin, establish a connection, and make a new friend all the way around. For my part, I'd love to hear from you, hear what you think about today. Give us an email at michaelhi@accessibe.com. That's MICHAELHI @accessibe.com. Or visit our podcast page, www.michaelhingson.com/podcast. And wherever you're listening, please give us a 5-star rating. We really value those ratings and would very much appreciate you saying that you liked us. And if you had some things that you want to say about it, let us know. Email me. I would love to hear from you. Get your thoughts. Again, it's michaelhi@accessibe.com. I know Quentin would like to hear from you as well. And when we all get the chance, maybe we'll have to do this again, Quentin. When you go back into the hotel industry, we'll have to just hear what new adventures come up. But I want to one more time tell you thank you very much for being here and giving us the opportunity to chat with you.
Well, I'm looking forward to that. I want that to happen as well. So I gotta have something to look forward to. Thank you.